He tore my future in half right there on a desk the size of a runway. And 3 years later, he sat 10 feet away watching that future argue about whether sharks could beat dragons. Yeah, that happened. I'm Lena Brooks. And if you've ever been written off, if you've ever had a door slammed so hard, your bones rattled, you know this feeling in your gut already, the day I carried that first ultrasound into Mason Hale's glass palace. I'd practiced my smile in the restroom like it was a password. Chicago below us looked fake, Lake Michigan looked printed. I set the photo down and said, 8 weeks, with a hope that sounded like a whisper. He lifted it between 2 careful fingers, studied it like a bad line item, and tore it once, then twice, then again. Paper makes a small sound, but when it's your child, it sounds like the end of the world. He slid a check across the desk and said, "Be smart, handle it, quietly. Leave your badge with security. I kept my pride, not my job." On the red line home, I pressed my palm to my belly and cried 2 silent tears. No one on a weekday train has time to notice. Weeks later, a nurse turned the screen and said, "Oh, it's 2 twins." And I laughed the kind of laugh that tastes like salt, because joy and terror sit right next to each other. You know what I mean. I moved over the state line to Hammond, Indiana, close enough for my sister Tasha to find me, far enough for his shadow to miss. We had a shoebox apartment, where you could open the bathroom door with your elbow, while stirring spaghetti and still hit the fridge. I worked nights at the hospital, where everything smells like bleach and coffee, and the clocks lie to you, my boys. Eli and Jonah came 3 minutes apart with matching eyebrows and different temperaments. Eli collected questions like rocks. Jonah positioned himself between his brother and anything with teeth. We learned survival math, coupons and calendars and luck. The first time they asked where their dad was, I said, "He lives far away and doesn't know how to be part of our family." "Is he mean?" Jonah asked with his little fists already curled. "No, honey, just confused." "Grown-ups? Lock the wrong door sometimes and throw away the key." I read them library books before my shift and taped sticky notes for Tasha that said, "Milk cereal, love you." I told myself we don't need him, we never will, and most days I believed it. On their 3rd birthday, I took them to a South Chicago place. I couldn't really afford candles on the table menus without dollar signs. The sun hit their hair just right, syrup gold, and we were mid-debate about sharks and dragons when I heard a laugh my body still remembered. I looked up, and there he was, that suit, that jaw, that certainty. Money buys, his water glass tipped. Didn't shatter, just spilled like something inside him was leaking. He saw my face then, Eli's jaw, and Jonah's eyes. He stood like he was learning how to use his legs, crossed the floor, said my name like it was gravel. "Can we help you?" I asked, voice so cold it could have frosted the candles. He sat without asking, a habit. "Men like him think his charm. How old are they?" he started. "That's not a question." "You ask a stranger," I said. I took my boy's hands so he could see the answer. In what was mine, don't pretend. "I'm nothing to them," he said, low. "You are nothing to them," I said, lower, by design, yours. "Who is this man?" Jonah asked. "Nobody important. Baby, just someone confused about where he belongs." He stood, said, "This isn't over." I said it never started, and I went back to dragons like my hands weren't shaking. That night he pounded on the hotel door. I cracked the chain and stepped into the hall, because my boys were asleep in the next room. His tie was gone, his eyes rimmed red like he'd been fighting with himself and losing. "How did you find us?" I asked. "I have resources," he said. "I needed to see you. You saw me, you saw them. That's already more than you earned. They're mine," he said, like the word belonged to him by blood alone. "They are theirs," I said, "and I am the one who chose them at 3 a.m., with the fever and the empty wallet." That's what fatherhood is, not a check and a threat. He slid to the carpet, like the floor had taken his legs. Tell me their names, he said. No, please no. He reached for my wrist without thinking, and I looked at his hand, and then at him, and said, let go or I scream. This entire floor awake and explain exactly who you are and what you did. He let go. I'm not going away, he said. Pretend. I said you're good at that. I shut the door and shook in silence until the shaking passed. He didn't knock again. He hovered. Packages started arriving like tiny invasions, hardcover science books, winter coats in the exact sizes. Accounts opened in the boys' names. With money like bait, I sent it all back with 3 words in my neatest handwriting. We don't need you. I found his car idling near daycare pickup. I caught him 2 aisles over at the grocery store, pretending to compare cereal. He stood at the far fence of the park, while my sons climbed the jungle gym. That man is watching us again, Jonah said. Not scared. Just tired, is he? Our dad, Eli asked. He gave up the right to that word. But yes, he thinks DNA means we owe him something. It doesn't. When Eli's red ball rolled to his shoes and he bent to pick it up, I crossed the distance on instinct and said, if you speak to them again without my permission, I will burn your name down to the studs in every room. You still think you control, not in court, in the court of everybody. With a phone, truth travels fast. He went pale and left. 2 weeks went quiet, and I let hope loosen my shoulders. I should have known better. Men like that don't hear no, they hear try a different door. The different door was his wife, Victoria Kemp Hale. Perfect hair, perfect lineage, smile, like a blade. She invited me to a downtown lunch spot where the forks weigh more than my phone, slid a folder across the table like she was handing me a map to a clean exit. A settlement, more money than you will see in one lifetime. You sign an affidavit that Mason is not the father. You refuse testing. You relocate. You disappear. The number on top could have bought us a backyard and a used minivan. And quiet. I picked up my water and threw it in her face. It wasn't polite, it was honest. My sons are not for sale, I said. Tell your husband that if he wants to know them, he can come ask me himself like a man, instead of sending you like a banker. Someone filmed the whole thing by night. It was everywhere with captions like, she said no to the money. People called me a hero. People called me an idiot. The internet always hands out trophies and tomatoes at the same time. Meanwhile, his board pushed him out. Victoria filed for divorce with a press release that cut. Marble investors peeled off. His father had a stroke. His mother went on TV to say the family name would survive without him. My front steps turned into a press conference. I took unpaid leave because you cannot ask your sister to hold the line against a swarm of microphones forever. I watched his life collapse while mine shook on its hinges, and it did not feel like winning. It felt like everybody drowning. Then a letter arrived from a therapist doctor. Renata Miles inside was his handwriting. Careful, like he was afraid of breaking the paper. I was raised to think image is oxygen, he wrote. I saw your ultrasound as a threat to who I was told to be. I was wrong, I was cruel, I can't undo it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to do the boring daily work that proves I should be allowed to know my sons. He listed things I didn't know. He knew Eli's pneumonia, the second job, the way Jonah tucks his hand under his cheek. Hated that he knew. I also felt something unclench because maybe for the first time he'd actually looked Dr. Miles said, I'm not here to absolve him. Safety is a practice. Boundaries over time repair. When you mess up, so I set rules, letters first, and I read every word. Then video calls in her office with me in frame, then short visits in public. If he kept showing up, the first letter to the boys said, my name is Mason. I missed your firsts because I chose a smaller life. I'm sorry, not the sorry that asks for a hug, the sorry that goes to work. Your mom is the bravest person I know. Eli traced the letters with his finger. Jonah asked, "Do you believe him?" "I believe he is trying," I said. "Trying is not enough. It's where you start." 18 months taught me how trust grows like moss, slow and stubborn. He showed up for every call, even when his face looked like a bad night. He sent small things with permission. A paperback about Mae Jemison for Eli, a model kit for Jonah. He never undermined me, never reached for the easy charisma that used to get him. Everything he asked how to help when Eli shut down after school. I said 2 minutes of silence and a snack, then asked to see his drawings. He did it. We started meeting at the Field Museum, Dr. Miles nearby, the first time I let him take them across the dinosaur hall for 10 minutes. My lungs forgot how to work until they ran back with a fossil tooth story and soap on their hands. There were setbacks. Jonah called him Sir because Mr. felt safer than Dad. Eli cried and asked if liking him meant being mean to me. Love is not a pizza, I told them. If someone else gets a slice, you don't get less, you get more, because there's more of you to love. Mason, learn to stand there and take that without asking for a trophy. On their 6th birthday, we did cupcakes at the Adler. Nothing fancy, Lake Wind, too much frosting. Tasha juggling balloons, Dr. Miles smiling like a tired angel. Mason brought a used telescope he cleaned himself and a book called Black Stars. He tied a trash bag to the picnic table and asked where to help. Eli quick hugged him and ran. Jonah lifted a hand in a single wave, and I saw time bend a little after we packed up. I walked him to his car. "Thank you for every inch," he said. "Don't thank me, thank consistency. This isn't a prize you win. It's a job you keep. One wrong move and I cut your access to the knees. Not a threat, a fact." "I know," he said. "Eli has a class play next month." I said, "Come alone, sit in the back. Be small so my son can be big. I'll be the quietest person in the building," he said. And for once I believed him. I don't do fairy tale endings. Justice here is not a white horse. Justice is a boundary. You hold until it becomes a doorway your kids can walk through safely. Maybe it looks like a man who tore an ultrasound into confetti, learning how to tape his life back together and bring duct tape for his boys. Maybe it looks like 2 kids who know their mother ever sold their names for a number. Maybe it looks like a cafeteria cupcake and a lake wind and a father trying to be quiet. If you were me, would you have led him this far? What do we owe the past and what do we owe our kids? Do men change when the parade stops or only when the mirror breaks? Tell me where you stand. Tell me what you've seen. Drop a comment, argue with me, share your story. And if this hit you, hit like, hit subscribe. Tell me where you're watching from. We've got more truth to tell.